think I'm live. Okay. Think I'm live. Hi everybody. I'm just waiting for it to go live here on my phone. It looks like the audio is good on my end, but you never know. The link was not right over on Patreon. I realized at the last second, so I had to run over there and change it. The video was right, but when you scroll down at the bottom, the link was wrong. It's still not live. Okay, there we go. There I am, looking all frazzled. Hi guys, happy Scorpio season. Happy Scorpio New Moon. This one is definitely intense. The new moon is conjunct Mars, the traditional ruler of Scorpio. It's an exact opposition to Uranus, the unpredictable, erratic planet of forward motion, but to what end, Uranus is over in Taurus, where it hasn't been since World War II. It's currently conjunct Israel's natal sun, and this moon is aspecting a whole bunch of different things. We're going to go a million different places here tonight. Surprise, surprise. That's just kind of how it is. I swear when I sit down to do these videos, I have no intention. I have no intention of going off on some random subject. I never really have that intention, but it's of course my Mercury, my Scorpio placements, my Mercury, which is the planet associated with how you process information, is in the third house of information, so it likes a lot of it, and it wants to get to the depths of it. It's in Scorpio, it's conjunct Pluto, so once I latch on to some sort of subject, then I just go. So it seems like every every video has some sort of a rabbit hole. And this one, we're really going to be exploring a lot of Hopi mythology and Hopi prophecies of the future, but it's pretty much the present. They were prophecies of the future when they were foretold, but it's pretty much what we're going through right now. So we're going to go a bajillion different places, so you may as well just hop into it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me go over here. Okay, you guys, I have to start with this because I cannot wait until the end to tell this to you. Okay, so we were already going to be discussing, of course, Israel. I always bring up current events that you can't really talk about this moon without talking about the conflict in the Middle East, especially since it's aspecting Israel's sun, which I only know about because some lovely follower mentioned that in the comment section of my post yesterday. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. So of course we're going to talk about that, but at the last second, I swear 10 minutes before I went and put a little bit of makeup on to look presentable for you guys, I was like, I wonder where the asteroid Israel is. So I came over to Luna because Luna is really the only place you can do this easily. I already have so many asteroids here that I watch a lot of the main players and the current geopolitical conflicts, and just random asteroids that I've put in here over the months for whatever random rabbit hole I'm in. And then I swear to God, there's never random. It always is for a purpose. Hi, Amanda. She's all, I love it. So jelly of your Scorpio, Mercury, and Pluto in the third house. It's intense and obsessive. It can get to the bottom of things, but it has no chill. No chill. I like it, but I don't know if the people around me do. Maybe you guys benefit from the deep dives, but it's intense. Okay, so I came over here and I was like, where is the asteroid Israel right now? We're actually at the time of the moon, right? And it's right here. I can zoom in on this. fancy. Okay. So it's right here at 9 degrees of Scorpio. The moon's over here. We're going to talk about this in a second. The moon falls at, well, this is later in the day. Yeah, this is later in the day. Let's just do the exact time so that my brain's not confused. Oh, stupid. Okay, now it's over here. All right, so the moon's over at 20 degrees, but in opposition to the natal sun of Israel, the 1948 creation of Israel. And the asteroid Israel is here at 8 degrees. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I was like, what is that asteroid that it is conjunct? And you guys, like, it's things like this. It's things like this that when I say the archetypes speak, like, it's moments like this that I am referring to. Like, this shit is just the archetype speaking. I can't even remember why I put this asteroid in here. I think I was just scrolling through the asteroids on here, and I saw that it was a thing, and it's called Deception Island. It's the name of an asteroid, and I was like, what the fuck is Deception Island? And so I was Googling it. It's an island in Antarctica, and it's this, like, strange island that has this, like, natural harbor in it. So it's like an island with, like, a lake in the middle that you can, like, go in through this little canal, and it's known as Deception Island, and it's down in Antarctica, which we know there's already, like, tons of stuff going on in Antarctica that is deceptive, but I find this very archetypally significant that at the time of this moon, the asteroid Israel is conjunct the asteroid Deception Island. Okay, yes, this is named for an island in Antarctica, but archetypally, astrologically, this asteroid would be associated with both deception and islands. And I find it interesting that the archetype of Atlantis will be talked about throughout this video. The asteroid Atlantis is in a square to this moon, and a lot of the karmic narrative that is playing out now is stuff that predates this civilization. And the Hopi mythology that we're going to talk about talks about, you know, these civilizations that were wiped out via flood or the ice age or another flood, right? So I think this is really interesting, especially considering, I don't know if you guys saw my post the other day about the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence, like, motto. Their seal, which you always see, it has like a candelabra, and Hebrew written around in a circle, and it says, "Through deception we shall make war." So I think that it's really interesting that during this moon, which is so strongly aspecting the chart of Israel, the asteroid of Israel, which the asteroids I really look at as these, like, unconscious forces, right? The planets, most of them, at least up through Saturn, we can see with our eyes. The other ones we can also see with, like, not even really that high-powered telescopes. The asteroids, very hard to see. These are rocks floating in space. They are very small. Some of them were only discovered very recently, and you need extremely high-powered telescopes to find them. They're unconscious forces. They're more unseen, right? So we see this asteroid Israel is conjunct the asteroid Deception Island. So there's definitely going to be a false flag deceiving type dynamic around this moon. I expect, you guys, the moon is so intense and action driven and erratic and unpredictable and chaotic. I expect there to be major world events probably manifesting in the Middle East, although this moon is also conjunct America and the Ukraine, the asteroids America and Ukraine. So not only is the asteroid Israel conjunct Deception Island, which, like, come on, the archetypes, they speak, but it's also in opposition to Jupiter. So it's in exact opposition to Jupiter at the time of the eclipse. It says it's at 8 degrees at this time, but like right later in the day, it'll move to 9. The time we had prior in the day, before we just moved it to the exact time, it was at 9 degrees. So an exact opposition to Jupiter. So Jupiter is the planet of big. It's the planet of expansive. It is a very grandiose energy. It said that whatever Jupiter touches, it expands. Now this can be like optimistic, beneficial growth and expansion and like philosophical insight and whatnot, or it can just literally blow up. I also want to mention that the asteroid BAM is also in a square, like an exact square to this moon. And the last time that we noticed that asteroid was aspecting something, I think a rocket blew up. It was also aspecting the astrology around the guide stones when that blew up. So it's a very volatile moon that we're moving into here, particularly for like geopolitical conflict, but also like in our personal lives. So keep that in mind as we traverse the next couple of days. I mean, today we have Mercury in a square to Saturn. Now is a time to kind of like rein back our mouths, because they are very, the energy is very scorpionic right now. It's very blunt, it's very intense, it's very straight to the fucking point, it's very piercing through. And Saturn really wants us to reel in a little bit so that we're not stinging left and right, okay? So let's go over to the slides. We'll start diving into things. I had to start with that, you guys. I was not going to be able to hold that inside me till the end. I just stumbled across that. I was like, how is... Like, everything I have here on the PDF, everything we were going to talk about here, the fucking slide is, like, all about destructions of islands in the past. Even all the Hopi mythology is about destructions of islands in the past. And the cards we pulled and the archetypal energy we're going to be discussing here is literally about, like, removing this veil of deception. This is, like, the first line from the card that I pulled for the end of the video. You guys know we always have the cards. The card I pulled was Apocalypsis. So it's this like initiation of apocalypse, which is this like great reveal, right? This removing of the veil of deception. This moon is also, I'm going to be bouncing all around you guys. I'm like so ADD right now. But you're used to it. This moon is also in a trine to Neptune retrograde in Pisces, the depths of that unseen multidimensional spiritual realm. And Neptune is retrograde, so that planet of illusion, of confusion, of the fog, of the deception is being able to cut through the bullshit right now and see fucking clearly. Things are being seen for what they are. So this is kind of all the places we're going to go here tonight. We're going to talk a lot about prophecies and mythologies of particularly the Hopi culture, the indigenous natives of what was a very large territory in the Americas, but is now pretty much the area around the Four Corners of like Arizona and the Grand Canyon, and how these prophecies are literally manifesting before the world's eyes right now. The energy around this moon, we have the Uranus opposition, that is very shocking. We have aspects to the nodes that are not the most harmonious and are quite irritating. And we have all of this energy transiting through Scorpio. A lot of hidden things will be exposed that are quite shocking pills to swallow, right? We're going to talk a lot about the year 1948 because a lot of things went down in 1948 and the charts of those things are being heavily aspected by this moon. Not only do we have Israel's birthday on May 14th, 1948, but on May 15th, 1948. I know I said like 98 before, but obviously I meant 48. The next day is annual day celebrated by the Palestinians known as the Nakaba. Also, I apologize to every culture whose words I'm going to butcher tonight. It'll be several. And if it makes them feel any better, I can't speak my own native language very well either. But the Palestinians were forced to flee, and they look at this day as like literally the end of a world, like a huge cataclysm. And the chart of that day is aspected the same time that Israel's chart is aspected, and it's sitting in exact opposition to this moon in conjunct Uranus, the rebel, the unpredictable, erratic planet who is just electric and can strike in any way imaginable. And then in 1948, the Hopi elders also met and recorded and logged a bunch of their history as a people. And this information started to like come out through one of the translators in the 1990s. And a speech was even done at the UN. And we're going to look at that here tonight. But it literally speaks of these like prophecies of the future, and like if we do not get right with the serpent, the goddess, the earth, the land, nature, and instead polarize too far into that scientific materialist, war-hungry, science-driven, colonialist mindset that we are kind of still in, how we're definitely going to destroy ourselves again. And so like now is kind of a test for humanity to see like, did we as a collective hear these calls? And I think many of us did. That's why you and I are here talking about this now. Or are we going to play out these future warnings play by play? There's actually some interesting aspects to this moon that give us the opportunity to like stand up for our own humanity, right? But we'll get to that a little bit later. You guys know I always like to kind of like summarize it here in the beginning. I watch these back later so I can like this is a new moon, so this is a seeding to a full moon that we'll have 6 months from now. Things are starting now. Much of what this is all about, while I do believe there are going to be huge world events around this exact day, much of what this is all about, we're not going to really know for 6 months, because it will culminate 6 months from now at a Scorpio full moon. And I'll come by and I'll look at this video. And so I always like to summarize it in the beginning, you know? So we can't hide from the serpent, from the unconscious, from the shadow, from the mysteries, from the scorpionic realm, right? And so the question this moon is asking us is, will we integrate her and become the healer that we all can be? Or will we repeat this cycle once more? Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit of both, even for those of us here trying to do the work. The cycles continue to repeat. We're in this spiral, right? But each time integrating more and more and more of our personal and collective unseen, okay? So this moon is conjunct several things and aspecting several other things, and we're going to get into that here now. I just want to kind of point out these pictures because sometimes I do forget to, and then when I watch this back later, I'm like, oh, you didn't say all the stuff you wanted to say. Obviously, a picture of the flood is something we've been discussing here, something we will continue to discuss, and something we'll be discussing more here tonight. These are some Hopi hieroglyphs, petroglyphs technically. This is a picture of like Mother Earth or Gaia, right? This like earthly energy, this divine feminine archetype that is very much indicative of the serpent, something we're going to talk about here tonight, something that we are working to reintegrate, something that we have severed our connection to. This is us, a little baby, dependent upon her for our very survival. And then here is a staff with a serpent wrapped around it. We're going to be talking about how this moon is aspecting the serpent and the grasp of Ophiuchus. This can be looked at as the staff of Ophiuchus or Asclepius, same dude, the healer in Greek mythology. It can also be attributed to Moses or even Jesus himself, as well as a plethora of other things. All right, grab your chart. Gonna look and see where a couple things are. So this is a new moon. So both the sun and moon are in Scorpio, activating a particular house in our chart. So you want to look and see where does this fall in your chart. For me, it's my 3rd house. This is why we're going to be talking about a lot of shit tonight because my mind went all the places and now I'm going to say it all to you. You want to look and see where does Scorpio fall for you. This is the area of your life where you're really having a new chapter begin, new seeds are being planted. It's really an area where you can harness a lot of manifestation potential, although the energy is a little erratic and unpredictable, but we'll talk about how we can work with that. This is the area where things are starting that are going to culminate 6 months from now during Taurus season, during the Scorpio full moon. Okay, so you want to look and see what house is this in your chart. You also want to look and see what is the opposite house, because we actually have an axis activated here. The sun and moon are in Scorpio, and Uranus is exactly opposite them in Taurus. So that house axis is being highlighted. I have Uranus over here in the 9th house of the higher mind, adventure, philosophy, the teacher, higher academia. It's why we went a bunch of places here tonight that are kind of weird and out there. All right, you want to look and see, do you have any planets near 20 degrees of the fixed signs? Okay, so that's Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, or Aquarius. If you have any planets near 20 degrees of either of these signs, and those planets are very strongly aspected by this moon, like very strongly aspected. If they're in Scorpio, they are conjunct the sun and moon. If they are in Taurus, they are in opposition to the sun and moon and in conjunction to Uranus. And if they are in either Leo or Aquarius, then they are in a square to this lunation. These are all aspects that we really feel. They denote action, they denote change, and they're felt within our reality. Now, if you have any planets near 20 degrees of the water signs, those planets are in a trine to this lunation. They won't be as strongly felt because it's more free-flowing, harmonious, lending energy, but any sort of archetypal planet that may be around 20 degrees of those water signs is really there to lend a lot of aid and benefit and ease and harmony and help and assistance to whatever it is those seeds, they're water signs, they're there to help water the seeds that are being planted right now. So looking to see what planets might be there. If you are new, which we do have several new members, hello, welcome. Make sure you print out the apprentice cheat sheet on Patreon. It's linked below hopefully every post, unless I forgot one. There's a little breakdown of all of the planets and the houses there, but you can just Google, like let's say it's your Mars, just Google Mars astrology, read about it. You'll learn it's the planet of like action, drive, motivation, desire, right? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Scorpio. We are not really going to dive too deep into the Scorpio archetype in this moon video. We have dove very deep in a plethora of other videos. If you're interested in those, you can search on Patreon for Scorpio, and all of the previous Scorpio videos will come up. We've dove super deep into the 8th house of the mysteries. We've dove super deep into Scorpio from a plethora of different angles. We've discussed this painting here in depth. We've gone a bunch of different places. We're not really going to go there today. We're going to go a bunch of other places. So, I'm realizing I don't have all the stuff I normally have at the top, so I guess I'll just say that. So Scorpio is one of the 4 fixed signs. It is the fixed water sign. The fixed signs are responsible for sitting in the middle of a season. The cardinal signs start the season, they spark things into life, they're initiatory. The mutable signs shift us into a new season. They're mutable, they're malleable, they're shifting. The fixed signs are steadfast and fixed and rooted. Scorpio is the fixed water sign. I always like to describe Scorpio like this. So this is how I describe the water signs. Cancer, I really look at as the sea, right? It's ruled by the moon, which literally governs the tides. And it's like the sea, the constant shifting tides, the constant crashing waves, initiatory, the waves coming and going, the tides coming and going, right? Pisces, that mutable water, is like a river, right? It's mutable. You can just flow down it. You're going to get where you're going if you just relax into it and flow, go with the flow, right? Scorpio is a little bit different. Scorpio, like we're going to talk about here, originally was governed by Mars until 1930 when Pluto was discovered. Mars is a very fiery planet. So when I think of Scorpio, I think of it 2 different ways. Sometimes I think of it as like a very, very, very deep lake, like a structured, because it's fixed water, right? Fixed lake that goes very, very, very deep into the depths of something, right? Sometimes that lake is probably on fire. You have to go through the fire before you go through the depths of Scorpio. That's that Mars energy. The depth is Pluto. I've heard other people describe it as like, because Scorpio is so intense, I've heard other people describe it as a waterfall, like a constant beating waterfall that just never stops and is just so intense and beating you. But I would say that that waterfall would also be like on fire. Like Scorpio is the least watery of all the water signs. It's my only water placements are in Scorpio, and they're intense. So Scorpio is definitely the least watery because of that Mars energy. So up until 1930, Mars was the ruler of Scorpio. So Scorpio was really represented in our collective consciousness, a lot more of the like lower archetypal expressions, right? That like lower chakra energy of Scorpio, the sex, the power, the destructive tendencies. Now, those destructive tendencies got a lot worse in 1930 when Pluto was discovered. After that, we were like thrown into World War II, quickly creating atomic bombs and dropping them on entire civilizations. The destruction was there, but also the alchemical transformation started to manifest within our collective consciousness. We've talked about this before, how Scorpio has this archetypal evolution about it. Like most people are familiar with it being the scorpion. And yes, it is. But the scorpion is said to go through a death and rebirth process where it is reborn as the eagle, where it can soar and see from this higher perspective. This eagle too then goes through a death and rebirth process because of what it saw up there. And then that eagle is reborn as the phoenix, right? And so humanity is going through this process. And Scorpio has this plethora of archetypal expressions that it can manifest as. It's definitely one of the most misunderstood signs, the most demonized signs. And again, you guys know me, I think that is all by design. A total psyop, because this is the house that plugs you into the mysteries. This is the house that transforms you. This is the house that holds the key to those higher archetypal spheres. This is the house you must face on your way through the gate, right? Okay. Daisy says that Scorpio in her chart is also in the 3rd house, Virgo rising, whoop whoop. She says, my sun and Uranus are also in Scorpio. Oh my gosh. Well, you'll probably love this video because we're going super deep and you've got your Uranus there. So you're like, have that mad genius archetype heavily aspected in your chart. So Daisy, I think you'll be able to follow along. Amanda says it's squaring her Pluto in the 8th. So we're about to talk about the 8th house here. The 8th house for you is highly activated, making you able to like pierce into this realm of the mysteries, right? So it's squaring her Pluto in the 8th at 17 degrees. It's also aspecting her Jupiter and Mercury and a wider orb to her Venus and Sun in the 5th. She said, I also heard Scorpio compared to ice. I like that. But like, I guess it would have to be like ice that melted and then froze again because it has to transform somehow with that Pluto energy. And maybe like ice that's set on fire. I don't know. But she says that's also some intense water. It is intense water and it is fixed water too. That's good. I'll add that to my list of descriptions. All right. So, Scorpio is the alchemical sign of death, rebirth, and transformation. This is where we evolve and ascend in our vibration. It's intellectual, spiritual, loyal, discerning, committed, imaginative, intuitive, very intense, very passionate, very suspicious. This is the sign of both the skeptic and therefore the detective that will get to the bottom of any motherfucking mystery. Traditionally, Scorpio governs the 8th house. If you are an Aries rising, like lovely Amanda, then it will fall in your 8th house. If you are any other rising sign, it will fall in another house. But we're all feeling this energy, to some extent. But we're feeling it like funneled through the house that it falls in our chart. But like as a collective on the world stage, we're all kind of seeing this archetypal energy activated somewhat. Okay, so the 8th house is the house of sex, death, birth, rebirth, the mysteries, the occult, hidden meanings, that which sits beyond the veil, which is really being pierced open at this time. Big business and big money. It's money when it mixes with other people's money, such as credit, taxes, insurance, joint finances, investment, and inheritance. So you can maybe we're going to send a bunch more money to a bunch of freaking countries because we just keep giving them all of our money. I don't know really how this will manifest for you personally, but really we're all kind of feeling this energy of like that which sits beyond the veil, the hidden, the realm of the mysteries, the realm of transformation being highlighted. Okay, so in a mundane sense, in the world, Scorpio governs all of our global resources, international finance, multinational corporations, and the death and birth of nations. I really want to highlight this one in lieu of current world events. This is the one that is really sticking out at me here, okay? Scorpio also has ties to organized crime, secret societies, and shady hidden deception islands, as well as occulted knowledge, which you probably will find on said deception island. We've talked about this guy so many times, so I'm not really going to get into it now. This is just an old slide. Okay, so before we get into the chart, we're going to go a bunch of places. We will get to the chart. We're going to talk about all the aspects and stuff. But I want to kind of cover all the other stuff first. I couldn't really decide which way I wanted to go with this, but this is the way we're going to go. All right, so we're going to talk about all of the different things aligned with this moon. The stars, the asteroids, what that brought up in my research and whatnot, and then we'll get to the chart because then we'll have it all laid out, and then we're going to touch on some other things. All right, so this moon falls at 20 degrees of Scorpio, okay? So it falls, hold on. What happened here? Oh, they're supposed to say something there. Okay, this is supposed to be... Where's the rest of the image? It's one of the stars in the serpent. But, like, you guys know I never know how to pronounce these stars. So, hold on, I have to... Oh, yeah, I just totally didn't take the picture right. Yeah. All right, well, we have it over in the PDF too, but I can't remember the name of the star, but it's one of the stars in the serpent in the grasp of Ophiuchus Serpens. This one here at 22 degrees is the main star in Serpens, known as Alpha Serpens or Una Kahali. I don't ever know how to pronounce that, but this is the main star in the serpent. Here in this very mundane and dry and humdrum Western astrology, they say that the star brings success followed by fall, suicide, insanity, accidents, success in war, politics, writing, problems in love. Let me make this big so I can actually read it. Problems in love, forgery, shipwreck, loss, and earthquakes. It's just a whole bunch of crap. This is also one of the stars in Serpens. It's at like 19 degrees something minutes. I can't remember what it was because I literally cut it off. It's like 19 degrees some odd minutes. And it's one of the other stars in this serpent here in the grasp of Ophiuchus. The main star here, it falls right here in his head. This is right where the moon falls. It aligns with the northern scale, which used to be the claw of the scorpion back in the day. This was like a much bigger claw, but it aligns with the northern scale of Libra. And this part of the serpent. Now here they look at these as like unfortunate stars, but we're gonna dive into Bernadette Brady and we're gonna see how, you know, she looks at it a lot more like me. As I mean, obviously we've talked about Ophiuchus so many times. Ophiuchus, he stands here in such a profound area of the sky. He stands here across most of Sagittarius with the serpent coming into 22 degrees of Scorpio with his foot on the galactic center and the scorpion. They're reaching for this crown constellation to crown themselves sovereign, and they're working to activate the galactic center, right? And the serpent is the key. Before we get to this book, you guys, we've talked about this so many times, so I'm gonna have to like summarize it because we're going a bunch of other places here today. But if you are interested in what I'm about to say, just go look at all the other Ophiuchus videos, including the one over on Patreon. Okay, so Ophiuchus, I'll read this first. This is I guess I didn't cite what it's from. Is it like Ptolemy or something? I can't remember. It's a little poem, an ancient astrological poem on Ophiuchus. So his feet stamp the scorpion down, enormous beast, crushing the monster's eye and plated breast. With outstretched arms, behold the serpent's coils. His limbs it folds within its scaly toils. With his right hand, its wreathing tail he grasps. Its swelling neck his left securely clasps. The reptile rears its crested head on high, reaching for the seven-starred crown in the northern sky. So Ophiuchus is sometimes called the 13th sign. I'm sure you guys have heard me say before how I do not believe he should be called the 13th sign because he does not just govern a 13th of the sky. He is this like esoteric constellation that sits slightly in this ecliptic, right? He's got his toe in this realm, but he's ascending out of it. He represents what the entire zodiac is trying to get us to do, which is to integrate what has been severed, okay? So Ophiuchus is the son of Apollo, okay? Apollo was the sun god in Greek mythology. He was one set of a duality. He was twins. He was a twin. He was the sun god, and his sister Artemis was the moon god. Okay? And so he represents one half of the whole in and of himself. He represents that masculine force, right? Now, as the story goes, right around the time of the Greek flood, Apollo killed Gaia's serpent. All right, so that earth mother there on the thumbnail, that is Gaia, the goddess of the earth. And her son was the python, or this serpent. He was said to live in the center of the earth, and this center of the earth was believed by the ancient Greeks to be the Oracle of Delphi, or the area of Delphi. And there was a temple there, and that temple was Gaia's temple. It was the temple of the earth goddess. And right around the time of this flood, Apollo slayed so right around the time of this end of one world, start of another, right? Apollo slayed Gaia's serpent. He killed her snake. He killed her serpent. He stole her temple, and he made it his temple. And then we saw this death to the earth goddess cults, and this rise of the solar god cults, right? This death of the serpent, this death of the goddess. Now, this serpent was said to govern the center of the earth itself, the land, this planet, this mother. And it was represented by this navel, this omphalos, right? Another symbolic connection to the axis mundi or the pole star. It's often tied to the same symbolic expression. Well, this was guarded by the serpent, much like the pole star in the sky is guarded by Draco, the serpent. The pole star and the galactic center being circled by Draco, the serpent, guarding that gold, is the same archetypal story as Ophiuchus trying to tame the serpent and reach for the crown. He is working to activate the axis mundi, okay? So his father, Ophiuchus' father, killed the serpent. He slayed Gaia's serpent. He cut our connection to the mother. Now his son, Ophiuchus, is then responsible for righting that wrong, right? Our connection to the goddess was severed by his father, but Ophiuchus is responsible for the reintegration of the serpentine energy. And he does this. And he becomes the healer. That staff that we see on the cover of this thumbnail with the serpent wrapped around it, that is Ophiuchus' staff. That is or a scapulus. Sometimes he's referred to as a scapulus. That is his staff. That is the staff of the physician. That is the staff of the healer. And the serpentine stars, well, here they look at it in a horrible fucking light. Others who have intuitive, esoteric, symbolic lens about them don't. And they look at it as this source of healing. Okay, I had a bookmark in here, but I lost it, so you're gonna have to give me a second to find it. Okay, so this is Bernadette Brady. We've read the whole chapter on Ophiuchus before. We're not gonna do that now. I just want to kind of touch on how she addresses the serpentine energy. We'll talk more about Ophiuchus in the next couple of videos because we're heading into Ophiuchus season when we're in this Sagittarius season. But right now we're really aligned with the serpent that we will be working to integrate all through Sag season, okay? Now, according to Bernadette Brady, the serpent is seen as a healing agent because it represents prudence, rejuvenation, wisdom, and rebirth. This is the healing side of the ancient goddess. For just as she had the ability to create life, she also had the wisdom and knowledge of how it could be healed, as well as the knowledge of how it can be destroyed. Asclepius or Ophiuchus was said to have the blood of Medusa in his veins. I would like to note now that the asteroid Medusa is exactly conjunct the pole star at the time of this eclipse. So yet again, that source of singularity, that serpentine energy aligning with that source of singularity. So he was said to have the blood of Medusa running through his veins. The blood that flowed on Medusa's left side created fatal poison, while the blood that flowed on the right side was said to be beneficial. Thus, Ophiuchus is connected with all aspects of healing, with medicine and drugs, ranging from the alcohols produced by monks to the knowledge of drugs and herbs in Western and Eastern medicines. As Melanie Reinhardt points out in her lectures, its position as the 13th ecliptical sign could well be an echo of the 13 lunar months, clashing with the established 12 solar signs. So again, that esoteric 13. So one of the reasons I don't think that Ophiuchus should be a 13th sign is because I don't think the zodiac should be broken up into 13. Because 12 just works. It breaks down into trines and squares and all of the different aspects, all of the modalities, all of the elemental expressions. It works. Ophiuchus to me represents ether. It represents something beyond the elements, beyond the split, the war, the divide. It is an echo of the one. That is why it's associated with the number 13, because 13 is a prime number. It can't be divided by 3 like a trine. It can't be divided by 4 by squares. It can't be, or modalities. It can't be divided by anything but itself and one, because it is what guides us back to the one. And the serpent, which this moon aligns with, is what we must face on our way back home to said one. Okay, so this moon is conjunct Serpens. It's also conjunct several other things. It's conjunct the asteroid Hopi. It's conjunct the asteroid Ceres. It's conjunct Mars, and it's conjunct the northern scale, as well as the asteroids Ukraine and America. So the northern scale, traditionally, from like the humdrums, is said to be associated with honors, wealth, distinction, a brilliant mind, success in sports, politics, war, religion, writing, tragedy, violence, and melancholy. It's a fortunate star, though. It's fortunate. It can be associated with Jupiter, Mercury, or Mars. So we're going to look at it from some different angles here. Let me go over to my PDF. Okay, so I'll link this for you guys. Sometimes I forget. If I ever forget and you guys, somebody cares, I don't know if you guys even read the PDFs. I don't know if you even care. I kind of make them for me. But if I ever forget, always just comment down below and be like, hey, Al, you didn't post that PDF. And then I'll post it. Okay. All right, so this is from my Solar Rider program. We're going to kind of gloss over this. We're not going to get too far into this. But those of you who are members of my course, when we get to the fixed stars section, I'm going to run one of these. It's like, I don't even know. It's like 40 pages long. It's so long when you do a whole chart for somebody. I'm going to run this for each of you guys, your star sets that align with each one of your planets, and I'll email them all over to you. But this is, these are the star sets that align with the sun and moon at the time of this eclipse, the fixed stars, okay? So the sun, here conjunct the moon, represents our dignity, our authority, our courage, our self-confidence, our self-assertion. It's our life force. It's the central core of our being. It's also associated with our health and our physical vitality. In your horoscope, or at the time of this moon, it's really how it's channeling it into the collective consciousness. The sun is the channel through which you receive, experience, and express the energy of these stars, while the moon is the channel through which you receive, experience, and express the energy of these stars in a more sensitive, emotional, nurturing, reactive, instinctual way. This is more of like an unconscious force and a conscious force, but at the time of the new moon, they're both working together simultaneously. So these archetypes are coming through consciously and unconsciously. We are seeing the serpent manifest in our reality consciously, but also there's a lot of unconscious forces bubbling up as well, right? This is the very long name of the star that is known as the Northern Scale. Literally no idea how to pronounce this. If you know, I would be so impressed. I have no idea. But it's also sometimes referred to as Beta Librae, which is the Northern Scale in the constellation of Libra. The scales in the ancient times were the claw tips of the scorpion. They were connected to the scorpion. They since were severed and became the scales of Libra. We have other things here in this area, like the crown, and this is the area of the sky we talked about in a couple of other videos ago, the where the great eruption is, right? So the star was a detriment star of 3 ancient lunar mansions. This is Vedic astrology. China's T, the foundation for... some of these stuff is meant to kind of take out, because I don't want to kind of read all of this, especially the stuff that I don't even really understand myself. But according to the Chinese, it represents royalty, empire, and illness of spring. This is what I wanted to kind of get to here. This area of the sky, particularly Libra's karmic scales, are associated with justice. Libra's karmic scales of justice bring in souls willing to champion difficult or unpopular causes, okay? Which are definitely things we see bubbling up within our collective psyche right now. These stars associated with justice and slavery, as well as freedom. It's associated with human rights. It's associated with race and religion and politics, social inclusion or exclusion, as well as war or peace. These are all major themes of this star. These are all major themes of current world events. And the star that aligns with this new moon in opposition to the sun of Israel, conjunct Uranus. These are all things that are going to be triggered at this time. All right, we're not going to read all this. I'm going to link this. You guys can come and read this. But this is all kind of about some of these stars. So the scales work to balance out turbulent inner conflicts, while the renewing, regenerative serpent heals all wounds, helping us find balance, self-discipline, and good judgment. These are the keys. These are all physical manifestations of like historical events that have happened to like either people with the star in their chart, or events that happened while the star was strongly aspected that she associates with this area of the sky. All right, so physical and our psychological manifestations. Addiction, including sexual addiction, suffocation, asphyxiation, eye and ear problems, cesarean births, possible danger of storms, shipwreck, fog, air crashes, fire eruptions, earth upheavals, environmental contamination, epidemics, intense destructive intolerance, animal attacks, especially snakes, accidents, stalking, murder, But also under these stars are peace treaties, actions for establishment of health, justice, peace, and human rights, as well as religious events, transformations, meteor falls, and miracles. So people who are born who have this star strong in their chart, with their moon in alignment, Julius Caesar, his moon, he was born with his moon exactly right here. He was a major conqueror, Empire of Rome, and he was assassinated. So, where they get the assassination part of this whole whatnot. And then some people who have their sun aligned with this are Edward the Seventh. I think that's the seventh of England. He was a peacekeeper of Europe until his death in 1910. Charles Manson, who was a cult leader and homicidal psychopath. And a bunch of astrologers who I have never heard of, but this one, she literally wrote a whole paragraph about him. Robert Burton, he was a 17th century mathematician and astrologer. He was also a minister, a humorist, and an author of Anatomy of Melancholy, and an exact mathematician, a curious calculator of nativities, a scholar, surveyor, devourer of authors, a melancholy and humorous person of great honesty, plain dealing, and charity. His company was very merry. No man of his time did surpass him for his dexterous interlarding his common discourse with verses from poets. So I don't know about him, but she really felt the need to lay into him being a really great stand-up guy. And there was also another astrologer who was born with their sun here. So you can see it's a wide range of energies, much like the archetypal expressions. It can go from conquerors and peacekeepers to cult leaders and mystics, right? Okay, so let's talk about some other things that are aligned with this moon before we get into all of the aspects. I want to talk about how the asteroid Hopi is pretty much exactly conjunct this moon. It's at 21 degrees, while the sun and moon fall at 20. So if you guys have been here with me for a while, I'm sure you've heard me mention the Hopi asteroid. Probably if you've had a session with me, if it's aspecting your chart, we've probably touched on it. And we've gone some places, right? We've talked about how, of course, the Hopi culture is an indigenous culture here in North America. They had a very large territory of land that slowly dwindled away, much like the Palestinians. We can see this echo happening here on our own land that I'm in here in America. I know not all of you guys are. I have followers and Patreon supporters throughout the world, but I live here in America, and I'm sure many of you do. And we're seeing what's happening over there in the Middle East, and we have to be reminded that the same thing happened here. Exact same thing happened here, and these cultures managed to hold on to some of their indigenous knowledge, indigenous wisdom, and are trying to share it with humanity. So we've talked about the Hopi culture somewhat. We've talked about how it has a strong tie to all of that earth wisdom, right? A connection to the land, a connection to nature, a connection to the animal kingdom, a connection to divinity and physicality, right? For us, a lot of times we think of the spiritual realm, that's the other side, the other world, the other side of the veil. For these cultures, everything was spiritual, particularly the land and the Mother Nature herself, right? We've also talked about how the Hopi culture's mythology is innately tied to Atlantis. Their basic myths revolve around them surviving many cataclysms in the past. They, like the Vedics, talk about there being, and even the Greeks talk about there being many ages and many different destructions that have happened in the past. This last one being from flood, and them having to literally live inside the earth, much like that serpent of Gaia, right? Literally live inside the earth for several generations because the upper world was not habitable. The sky was dark. It was probably after some sort of like crazy meteor collision and flood, but the sky was dark. It was not habitable. So they lived inside the earth for a considerable length of time. Some myths speak of the ant people being the ones that took them into the earth. I think the petroglyphs I have on the cover have the ant people on there, or maybe I took that one off and I put different glyphs because it didn't fit. I think I took those ones off and I put the glyphs of like the spiral wheel. But you can look up the glyphs of the ant people. Some of the other mythologies speak of there being this like white brother, these like white brotherhood, who helped guide them, and that they came from like across the sea, and they like literally speak to them being like fair skinned and white, and perhaps even being survivors from another island that helped them to survive, right? So we've talked about the myths somewhat, the connection to the floods, but we're gonna go pretty deep into the Hopi mythology here, particularly the prophecies, because it's just kind of so relevant. I'm gonna make this bigger so I can read. We'll come back to the chart if we have to. We'll bounce back and forth, but I cannot read that, it's so small. I thought I was going to be able to, but I can't. So we're just going to kind of dive into this. So this is just a little tidbit from the flood myth of the Hopis. It's very similar to the flood myth in Genesis or the Babylonian texts, or really Vedic texts. Like every culture has the same flood myth about the gods being unhappy, humans being corrupted, there being a flood, but then there also being some sort of survivor who made a raft or a boat and saved himself and his family and some sort of animals to continue on, right? To create the new earth, right? And in this Hopi mythology, this has happened several times, and much like occult lore, where it's believed we had this like Polarian age and this Hyperborean age and this Lemurian age, and now we're in this Atlantean age. Well, then we went to an Atlantean age, and then an Aryan age, and then we're moving into another age, or whatever it may be. Every different culture has their names for these cycles that humanity has been through. We're just going to touch on this real quick before we get into the myths. These are the astrological associations with the asteroids Atlantis, which sits in a square to this lunation over here at 24 degrees of Leo, in a square to Uranus and the sun and moon and Hopi over here. Atlantis is in an almost exact square, closer to a square to Mars. And Hopi is conjunct the sun and moon. So astrologically, the asteroid Atlantis is associated with a sense of impending doom, a belief in deserved punishment, negative karma, invasions of privacy, or maybe just invasions in general, access to inside or confidential information. This Scorpio energy really helps us to get into hidden information, abuse of resources, talents for information, importance of confidentiality, importance of how you use knowledge. This is something we're going to be talking about as we get into this Hopi breakdown here, and how technology is not bad in and of itself. It's how we use it. Like, are we creating nuclear bombs to destroy ourselves, or are we creating things that will better humanity moving forward, right? Also associated with water disasters and warnings, probably just disasters of all kind. But we have to remember that Atlantis also had a golden age. So it has a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share with us, as well as like how that knowledge and wisdom can take us in a destructive trajectory. And it has a very strong essence of just like karma we are still working through. Okay, now the Hopi asteroid, which is conjunct both the sun and the moon at the time of this lunation, is associated with native cultures. Now here in the Americas, it's associated with a native indigenous American culture, but this can be associated with all native cultures, including like the indigenous Palestinians that we see being obliterated from their homeland right now. This asteroid is associated with memories and behavioral inclinations, indigenous people of all kinds, minority groups, contact with knives and cutting, corn-based foods, feathers, snakes, and ambushes, including psychological and spiritual ambushes, particularly in Scorpio. Okay, these can be like occult, psychic attacks, right? Protect yourself. Territorial claims and disputes. I mean, I don't really need to elaborate on that. We see how that's manifesting in the world. Attacks or ambush perceptions. Deep-seated defense, especially to points in axis or aspect. Okay, so deep-seated defense, especially towards points aspected by this asteroid. Well, this asteroid is an exact opposition to the sun of both Israel as well as, let me just go here and show you. Oh my gosh, my desktop is such a nightmare. I always don't even want you guys to see it. Okay, so let me go here first. Okay, so here is Israel's natal chart. Israel was born on May 14th, 1948. Israel became a nation with a war of independence on May 15th. This was the day after the United Nations created the State of Israel. On that day, Israel was attacked by Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Jordan, and a 15-month battle for independence ensued, which was then followed by a shit ton of different crises and scruffles and wars and pushing the borders more and more until Palestine went from looking like this in 1917 to this in 1948 to this, where these two things then became occupied in 1967 to this in 1995 to practically nothing now. And Israel's birthday is May 14th, and its sun falls at 23 degrees of Taurus. So its sun falls right here, conjunct Uranus, opposite this moon. And the sun of the anniversary of the Nakaba. So what is the Nakaba? The Nakaba is celebrated every year on May 15th, the same time that Israel is celebrating its birthday. Palestinians all around the world mark the Nakaba, or the catastrophe, referring to the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 1948. So the son of the Nakaba and the son of Israel are both being aspected by this moon, and they both align with this Sabian symbol. So you guys, I only know this because of this lovely follower who wrote this in my comment section the other day. I just want to read it to you. So I wrote, I don't know, one of my posts about the current events. I don't remember which one this was. But she said, if this is not interesting enough, here's another thing. Israel's sun is at 23 degrees of Taurus, which means that the 24th degree in the Sabian symbols is associated with it. She told me to go read it. And I was like, okay, I don't normally reference Sabian symbols in my work. I don't know why. I'm not against them. I just really kind of forget that they exist. If you're not familiar with what Sabian symbols are, some dude meditated or channeled visions for each one of the degrees of the zodiac. So like each one of the degrees of Aries, each one of the degrees of Taurus, and so forth. It's like vision. It's like archetypal picture of like how they envision. And there's different people who have different Sabian symbols. How they envision this area of the sky. And so I looked it up. You guys, you can't make this shit up. This is crazy. This is one of the last things I looked up too when I was like already on this whole Hopi tip and indigenous tip. So this is the Sabian symbol that aligns with the sun of both the Nakaba, the Palestinian ethnic cleansing, as well as Israel's birthday. All right. And this Sabian symbol is seen as a Indian warrior riding fiercely on a horse, holding a human scalp hanging from his belt and or his hand. It's the Sabian symbol is a mounted Indian or native with scalp locks. So it's associated with channeled aggression. This degree of the zodiac is associated with channeled aggression. During early stages of development, it remains crucial to established identity of a self and a tribe by fighting for it if needed, associated with channeling aggression. One side of human nature that needs to be channeled properly instead of being denied is the natural aggressiveness and potential for violence that can arise when survival is in doubt. Those who are foreign to each other are often fearful and feel threatened by the other. It is a fact of life that must be faced. It is not all unusual for this to spill over into competitiveness with one's own tribe. So this is like the small little like archetypal description of this area of the sky, and it aligns with the sun of Israel as well as that Nakaba. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so let's dive into Hopi mythology, Hopi prophecy. We're really going to dive into the Hopi mythology. I mean, just the Hopi worldview in general. This moon is a Scorpio moon. It wants to go deep into something. It wants to expose something. And it's on top of the asteroid Hopi. We also have Mars there, the traditional ruler of Scorpio, all on top of that, as well as the asteroid Ceres. So Ceres is associated, she is the first asteroid that was ever discovered. And she, much like Gaia, has a strong connection to that Earth goddess, Earth Mother archetype. And she's here. This is what we are working for. This is what Hopi and many indigenous cultures never lost their connection to. But many of us in the modern world have, in quote unquote civilization, we have lost our connection to our humanity, to our nature, to the land, to the mother. And the asteroid Ceres is here. She's associated with fertility, motherly relations, the land, the harvest, abundance, nurturing, and issues around taking care of people, particularly around food. It has a strong connection to nature. You guys, look what I learned. I didn't even know my software could do this. For some of these asteroids, if I double click on them, this thing pops up and it tells me a little bit about it. And I didn't know this until a couple hours ago. So not all the asteroids have it, but this one does. Ceres, of course, the first asteroid ever discovered. It was discovered in 1801, and it's named for the great corn goddess and the earth mother of classic mythology. This is the mother of Persephone. She's associated with the seasons and the cycles and the land and the fruits of that land. She's associated with both childbirth, mothering, nurturing, and particularly taking care of others, which right now people are not connected to this archetype enough and are really just okay with losing their humanity. And it's really sad to see the warmongering part of the human psyche manifest within so many people right now. It is very disheartening, but this is what we need to get us through these initiations ultimately. So this archetype, this asteroid represents a mothering, a nurturing principle, often working in very practical ways. There seems to be a strong pastoral and educational quality to her influences. And the asteroid, or sometimes a dwarf planet, she's known as a dwarf planet now because she's so big, also symbolizes the powerful protective force that fosters growth and development. It's associated with agriculture, and ordinary working people seem to come under this asteroid mostly benign rulership. In mundane terms, it's so hard to read this font, you guys. I wish I could, can this get bigger? It's just like making the thing bigger, not the words. Okay, I'm trying my best. I have to get really close. In mundane terms, Sirius has a distinct bearing on the well-being of ordinary people, like civilians, like the innocent, right? She has a bearing. In mundane terms, Sirius has a distinct bearing on the well-being of ordinary people. And research has proven it is one of the most important fundamental symbols of the spirit and practice of democracy. In synastry, synastry is when you compare your chart to like a loved one's chart or any other chart. And the synastry series is very important, and it shows the ability of people to take care of each other based on deep goodwill or genuine love. It's associated with loving kindness and is a very good keyword. Loving kindness is a very good keyword to describe the influence of this asteroid. There is also a link here with food issues, like there being no food or water or electricity. And Sirius can be a factor where there are eating disorders or problems with calorie control. Other aspects of the shadow side of Sirius is a tendency to smother love or some sort of devouring quality. There can also be issues around separation from loved ones. However, the positive side is very positive indeed and seems to be working to make the universe a more accepting, harmonious, and loving place to be. All right? So this asteroid is very close to Mars and well within orb to the moon itself. Okay. So let's dive in to the Hopi everything. Just the Hopi everything. We're going so many places. Let me bring the chat back up because I don't have it here. Okay. So I'm so blind, you guys, and I can't wear my glasses because the glare is really just too bad. Okay, so this is from the website Ancient Origins. I have it linked at the bottom of this if you guys want to go and read more, because while I did take a lot from, I did cite a lot from this webpage, there's even more that I didn't. So if you want to go read more of it, it's cited down below. It's linked down below. So this is on the Hopi's prophecies of the future. All right. So the Hopi Indians of the American Southwest represent the oldest continuous Native American group in the current United States. Contradicting professional opinion, the Hopi claim they did not come to this continent across the Bering Strait, but north from South America. According to Oswald, aka White Bear. He dictated a bunch of books. And, well, I'm going to get there. We'll just get there. So according to Oswald White Bear Fredericks, whom I met twice as a teenager through my high school anthropology teacher, this is the years he was born. He was the primary Hopi consultant for Frank Waters' Book of the Hopi, a common title in university libraries. I don't know if you're watching this, Tavis, but I thought I bought this book from you, and I was like, oh, I have that book. And then I had like 3 packages from you over here that I wasn't letting myself open until I finished the freaking course lesson I'm working on right now. And so I was like, oh, I went and opened them all, and I guess it's not there. Maybe I meant to buy it and I didn't buy it from you. But I thought I had this book, but I don't have it. But I found the PDF, and I will link it for you guys down below. It's in my email. I forgot to bring it up here. But it's a pretty well-known book. So during our current period of history, the Bear Clan, which is his clan, supersedes all other Hopi clans in authority, and it serves as the tribe's historians. It preserves the knowledge and the memory of Hopi migrations and history. So White Bear proved to be an unusually valuable source, even if Western Orthodoxy won't accept the truth of his startling claims that technological civilizations have previously arisen and fallen, and that beings from other habitable planets have visited the earth. So some people talk about it being like star people or like beings from other planets, and other Hopi elders make it seem like they came from like a far distant land across the ocean. It depends on who's kind of telling the story, right? So it must be conceded that his claims are at least ethnographically valid. It is true that the Hopi sincerely believe their tribal history, and it might benefit us to consider seriously what White Bear said. Essentially, White Bear described a succession of cycles over vast periods of terrestrial time, which involved the development and destruction of societies. Humanity, he said, advances for a long time, a golden age, then progressively loses connection with its true spiritual nature through egoism and I literally don't know that word, but through egoism. I want to point out that this moon is square I'll just show you. This moon here is sitting in a square to Atlantis in Leo. So this is literally the ego of this Atlantean age, right? Leo governs the ego. It governs the identity, right? That needs to express itself sometimes to other entities' detriment. But we have the asteroid Atlantis in a square to this. It's actually in a grand cross with the asteroid Eros. So Eros is opposite Atlantis, and they both sit in a square to Uranus and the moon. So this moon, the sun, Hopi, Mars, and Ceres. This, you guys, I couldn't make the slides and do everything, so we don't have the slides. You'll have to just follow the little cursor. But it's a grand cross. So the asteroid Eros is associated with passion. And it's here in Aquarius. So this energy here helps us to tap into the passion of humanity. We really have the passion and desire and drive of the humanitarian, the rebel, humanity itself, in opposition to the ego of the Atlantean warlords, ultimately. Let's see what this says about Eros. Eros represents the immense primordial force of desire for manifestation and experience, which informs the entire cosmos. It shows dynamic energy, passion, and will to power, including sexual passion and attraction. Eros's symbolism includes the idea of passion as suffering. There is a fiery, burning quality of the energy of Eros, which sometimes runs out of control. It can lead to scorching on many levels. When the fires of desire go wrong, there can be a lot of suffering and damage. So we have to make sure that this rebel, this humanitarian, this human is not letting its desires run wild, but it's using that passion, it's using that life force to push us into an evolved future, right? All Aquarian archetypes. All right, so essentially White Bear describes a succession of cycles over vast periods of time, which involve development and destruction of societies. Humanity, he said, advances over a long period, then progressively loses connection with its true spiritual nature through egoism. And this disharmony eventually manifests in this three-dimensional earthly realm as natural disasters, conflicts, wars, environmental degradation, and disease. In the Western view, these things just happen to us. A lot of times they are orchestrated, but they're orchestrated because our collective psyche is in this state that we allow these things to be orchestrated by the powers that be behind the scenes, right? Because that veil of deception has yet to be pulled from our eyes. But in the Hopi worldview, spirit and form intimately intertwine. So mankind's disharmonious evil deeds manifest in the physical environment as crisis. In the late 1970s, a former NASA engineer enlisted Whitebeard's help to produce a book in the late 1970s, former NASA engineer enlisted Whitebeard's help in producing a book in German called this. Kaskara and the Seven Worlds, which was not published in English. This NASA engineer and also a guy who worked at on the development of the atomic bomb reached out to this guy after seeing the type of destruction that humans were capable of. And even lived with him for quite a while, like learning all of this indigenous wisdom. And he also wrote a book. It might be the same guy. I'm not sure. We'll keep reading. So this book was not published in English. During the course of his research, this guy, Bullrich, often stayed with Whitebeard and his wife, Naomi, at their home in Sedona, Arizona. The couple escorted Bullrich to ceremonies on the Hopi reservation, explaining to him what was happening and arranging for him to interview elders of various clans. Bullrich recorded Whitebeard, and Naomi transcribed those recordings into a typed and coherent transcript. That manuscript is the basis for his book. I want to kind of point out that I find it a little suspicious that it's a NASA engineer, and that this one, recording and translation, this particular book has a strong focus on, ETs, aliens, otherworldly beings, when other Hopi elders who weren't necessarily working hand in hand with NASA worded these same legends as them being visitors from across the globe, from another place here on Earth. So I just think that's kind of an interesting discrepancy there between the two narratives. So he recorded Whitebeard And Naomi transcribed those recordings into typed and coherent transcript. And that was the basis for his book. So this is the name of their island that sank into the Pacific Ocean around the same time that Atlantis sank into the Atlantic Ocean. So whenever I talk about Atlantis, I use Atlantis kind of as like a catch-all term for a pre-Diluvian civilization, because we don't really know a lot of these other names, but I really do believe that we had a worldwide cultures of all kinds that spanned the globe multiple times, and that there were multiple different cataclysms throughout time. The whole globe probably wasn't hit at once, but when big things happen, like huge meteors hit and the sky turns black, that affects the entire globe, right? Now this was an island over in the Pacific, and they say that the only remnants of it are Hawaii. I guess you could maybe connect this somewhat to the Lemurian mythology. And then Atlantis was over in the Atlantic Ocean. They both sank. The document begins with Whitebeard's introduction. This is the history of my ancestors and the clans who came to this land. The continent on which my people lived for a long time was sinking into the sea. The people had to leave it and go to a new continent in the east and make a new beginning. So it was in the Pacific Ocean, it was sinking, all that was left was Hawaii. They went over here to the Americas and landed probably over here in California, moved into Arizona and that whole land, and settled to make a new beginning. White Bear described Kasara as a continent that sank into the Pacific Ocean. He said Hawaii is a remnant of the Hopi ancestors' original motherland. Interesting that Hawaii was just viciously attacked on 8/8 by our own government. We can see how the colonizers of this land are still destroying the indigenous culture that was here prior, as well as Easter Island. Easter Island is also believed to have been part of this ancient civilization. This is the last remaining of several islands that helped Kasara refugees cross the vast expanse of the ocean to South America. So I guess it was South America. Kasara was submerging at about the same time Atlantis was sinking, although Atlantis went down quickly. White Bear said this was due to its heavier negative karma, because Kasara's offenses were not as serious. The retribution that its people suffered was lighter, and the destruction happened more slowly, allowing the population time to flee, time to get over to the Americas, time to get into the earth, time to prepare, right? It was important and necessary, White Bear felt, to inform the world about Hopi history and the previous cycles of advancement and destruction the world has undergone. But he was heavily criticized by some Hopi who believed he should not have revealed these truths to the masses. White Bear said, quote, "It is time to speak out our people. It is time to speak about our people and to tell you who we are and why we are here, in the hope that somebody one day will understand us. Although I am the one who is speaking here, it is the knowledge of the Hopi that you will know. Out of the long story of the Hopi arises a warning for you. You will understand later what I want to say when I tell my story. This is why I speak now. That concerns us all. Perhaps this warning will not come too late." Before we continue on, I just want to read this. So this is a prophecy, one of the Hopi prophecies of the future. This is known as the Warrior of the Rainbow prophecy. It, like a lot of Hopi prophecies, are kind of up for debate. Some people will argue that this is like New Age, woo-woo, modern bullshit, and perhaps some of it is. Perhaps some of it is. Who am I to say? I have linked here videos of Hopi elders speaking for themselves. But other people will say that this is modern New Age jargon. This being one of the prophecies that is often attributed to modern New Age jargon, but I like it, and it's one of the ones I want to believe in. And this is the prophecy of the warrior of the rainbow. And this is that when the earth is ravaged and the animals are dying, a new tribe of people shall come onto the earth from many colors, creeds, and classes, and by whom their actions and deeds shall make the earth green again. They shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow. We will connect to that land again. We will connect to our humanity again, and we will help usher in this new age when the earth is at its shittiest. And we're about there, right? All right, so according to the Hopis, this is their view on Atlantis, all right? So to the east of Kasara was Talatogabulwakala, or the Eastern Country, a word that means roughly land of the morning sun. White Bear said there was a, quote, large surface of water between Kasara and this other island, the land that we call Atlantis. At the beginning of the Third World, the people of Atlantis were peaceful, were as peaceful as they were, as the Hopis. We have, of course, the same divine origin. They had the same symbols as we had, but with time, they changed. They started to explore the secrets of the Creator that man should not know. There exist secrets which are only intended for the divinity, and when men started to study them, they infringed upon this law. In fact, man has the same capacity as the Creator, but the Creator maintains secrets that men should not seek to understand, White Bear said, noting that this matter concerning the secrets is very serious. He drew a parallel to our time to help us understand what the Hopi believe. Your civilization developed many things. Airplanes, for example. When my uncle led me to Arabi to see the ancient inscription of a jet, which is naturally much older than your jets of today, he said to me, "It would be very good to fly again through the air as our people did in the past," White Bear explained. My uncle said, when there is a catastrophe somewhere far away, one can bring help, like food, drugs, and tools. But an airplane can also bring death to people hundreds of miles away, and in doing that, one will disobey the divine law. White Bear asked how we can exclude ourselves from responsibility if we assist in conducting research that leads to destructive ends. Let's suppose that you made a scientific discovery in the field of rocketry and that somebody makes a bad use of your discovery. You would not do it, but it's your discovery, White Bear insisted. Do you really know where your responsibility begins and ends? The Hopi do not oppose technology, and they endorse research that will help humanity stay alive and healthy. The Creator wants us to benefit from this life and do as little heavy work as possible, and He wants all that is good, all the joy, all the happiness of the world to become ours, White Bear said. But now researchers try to produce artificial life, and one day also a human. Well, these things you should not do. These are like artificial wombs, artificial embryos. We're playing God, right? We should not do this. Genetically altering our DNA with mRNA, all of the different things that are happening right now. These are that part of the Creator we should not know, the things we should not be doing. He said we can summarize all that in 2 sentences. The Divine Creator said to us, "If you want to be my children, you should not use your knowledge to destroy, kill, or misuse what I gave you. If you do not respect this law, you are not my children." I think you still are, but you know what I mean. So you can read much more from the Ancient Origins website here. from these snidbits, okay? We're going to read a little bit more, though, here. This is from Wikipedia. So, there are other prophecies. This is from that same Walter's book, the Book of the Hopi. There are other prophecies. Many of them are focused around World War III and the destruction that will occur if we were to head into World War III. So the ninth and final sign of destruction by Whitefeather, according to Walters, is, quote, "You will hear of a dwelling place in the heavens above the earth that shall fall with a great crash. It will appear as a blue star. Very soon after this, the ceremonies of my people will cease." This idea of the blue star, Chakina, marking the end of Hopi rituals is reflected in Walter's book, The Book of the Hopi, in which he states, "The end of all Hopi ceremonialism will come when Kanchana removes his mask during a dance in the plaza before uninitiated children. This absence of Hopi ceremonialism will coincide with the destruction of the fourth world." That's the world we're in right now. Walter suggests that World War III will begin and the United States will be ripped apart by war, leaving only the Hopis and their homeland intact. The war of the end of the world is described by Walters as a spiritual conflict with material matters. Like, if that's not what we are living through right now, especially this moon highlighting that, the deep spiritual occult energies of this war, very much manifested by that Scorpio, opposite Uranus, that high technology in Taurus, those material matters, where Taurus hasn't been since World War II. Like, this is where we're at. I don't know if I have this in here. I know I read this earlier, but they say that like when the United States is destroyed because of like atomic weaponry and we destroy ourselves, the place that's safe is the Hopi homeland. It's the Four Corners and that area where, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, what's the fourth one? Arizona, Nevada, where the four states all meet, the Four Corners monument that's on native sacred land. They say that area, which is surrounded by four mountains, this is the safe haven, and that people will come from all over. So according to Hopi prophecy, as reported by Walters, shortly after this blue star is visible to all, maybe this is some sort of supernova or something, I don't know, or a comet. Shortly after this blue star is visible to all, and the day of purification is realized, the true white brother will come to earth in search of Hopi. So this is kind of like Hopi's version of, I guess, like maybe Jesus, or a lot of ancient cultures have these mythologies of these like teachers and guides who came to help teach them like their customs and their rituals, right? And in this Hopi mythology, it's this like white brotherhood. He like came in, I think even oftentimes he has like a white beard. And in this Hopi mythology, like he came before, he helped them to survive the flood, or it's usually many of them, it's not just one guy. And then they promise to return again. And so the Hopi are like waiting for this dude to return, much like many other mythologies and cultures are waiting for, their return of their Messiah or their deity of choice, right? So in this narrative, this true white brother will come to earth in search of the Hopi, who steadfastly adhered to their ancient teachings. They didn't lose connection to that indigenous wisdom. It is said that if the true white brother fails in his mission and is unable to find uncorrupted men and women, that the earth will be completely destroyed and none will be spared. However, if successful in bringing the symbols and finding those still able to follow the true Hopi way of life. A new world will be created, and all the faithful will be saved from the destruction, right? Like, did we lose our humanity altogether, or can they find uncorrupted men and women? These are just an archetypal story like all of the other ones. I'm not saying any of this is literal. So the true Pahana, or Bahana, is the lost white brother of the Hopi. Okay, most versions have it that the Pahana, or this elder brother, left for the east, towards the Atlantic, right? For the east at the time that the Hopi entered the fourth world and began their migrations. However, the Hopi say that he will return again, and at his coming, the wicked will be destroyed, and a new age of peace, this fifth world, will be ushered in to the world. You can see how this is like an echo, a similar energy of many cultures worldwide. As mentioned above, I should note that like the Hopis do say that much like the Romans, they were kind of cool with integrating other people's beliefs into their belief system and like evolving it through interactions with other cultures. So, it could have an influence from some of these other myths. So as I mentioned above, it is said he will bring with him a missing section of the sacred Hopi stone into possession of the Fire Clan, and that he will come wearing red. Traditionally, Hopis are buried facing east in expectation of this guy returning from that direction. You can read more on Hopi mythology here. This is like the Wikipedia page if you want to get like technical. All right, so this is this message from the Hopi elders. We're going to read this whole thing because why not? I really don't care how long this video is going to be. You guys have several days. Today is the 10th. The moon is until the 13th. If you need to come back, watch this later, whatever. We're going to read this all. So this is a message from the Hopi elders. We'll just click this because this is the whole page, and we'll just go to the page. Okay, so this message was an address given by this guy, who is a member of the Hopi tribe, from Arizona. He gave this address to the United Nations on December 10th, 1992. And what he is citing and what he is reciting is things that he translated in 1948 from a group of Hopi elders who met in 1948. And this was his speech to the United Nations in 1992 about what was said in 1948. I think that's interesting because 1948 was the same year Israel was created and the Palestinian ethnic cleansing began. Okay? So presented by this guy, he was the final speaker. He was preceded by 3 shouts by these people. Who was the first speaker of the day? The shouts were a spiritual announcement to the Great Spirit of the people assembled, and the intention to give a message of spiritual importance. Thomas then sprinkled cornmeal next to the podium of the General Assembly and made a brief remark in Hopi that translates as follows. Hopi spiritual leaders had an ancient prophecy that someday world leaders would gather in a great house of mica with rules and regulations to solve the world's problems without war. I am amazed to see the prophecy has come true, and you are here today. But only a handful of United Nations delegates are present to hear the Monte Sinam, the Hopi for First People, from around the world who spoke here today. You guys know I have my views about the United Nations. I think it's a New World Order organization, but the theory behind it, the underlining concept behind it, a united nations of all of the nations. I mean, it's not all the nations, that's the problem, but a united coalition of all of the nations who can sit down at a desk and work through the world's problems without war would be ideal, right? Okay, so this next part, he switched to English and the rest is in English. My name is Banasida of the Wolf, Fox, and Coyote clan. I am a member of the Hopi sovereign nation. Hopi in our language means a peaceful, kind, gentle, truthful people. The traditional Hopi follows the spiritual path that was given to us by the Great Spirit. We made a sacred covenant to follow his life plan at all times, which includes the responsibility of taking care of this land and life for his divine purpose. We have never made treaties with any foreign nation, including the United States, but for many centuries we have honored this sacred agreement. Our goals are not to gain political control, monetary wealth, nor military power, but rather to pray and to promote the welfare of all living beings and to preserve the world in a natural way. We still have our ancient sacred stone tablets and spiritual religious societies, which are the foundations of the Hopi way of life. Our history says our white brother should have retained those same sacred objects and spiritual foundations. In this case, he's not referring to that like great white brother. He's referring to like the colonizers, right? In 1948, all traditional Hopi spiritual leaders met and spoke of things I felt strongly were of great importance to all people. They selected 4 interpreters to carry their message, of which I am the only one still living today. At that time, I was given a sacred prayer feather by the spiritual leaders. I made a commitment to carry the Hopi message of peace and deliver warnings from prophecies known since the time the previous world was destroyed by flood and our ancestors came to this land. My mission was to open the doors of this great house of Micah to native peoples. The elders said to knock 4 times, and this commitment was fulfilled when I delivered a letter and the sacred prayer feather had been given to John Washburn in the Secretary General's office in October 1991. I am bringing part of the Hopi message to you here today. We only have 10 minutes to speak, and time is late, so I'm making my statement short. In the meeting in 1948, Hopi leaders 80, 90, and even 100 years old explained that the Creator made the first world in perfect balance, where humans spoke one language, but humans turned away from moral and spiritual principles. They misused their spiritual powers for selfish purposes. They did not follow nature's rules. Eventually, the world was destroyed by sinking of land and separation of land by what you would call major earthquakes. Many died, and only a small handful survived. Then this handful of peaceful people came into the second world. They repeated their mistakes, and the world was destroyed by freezing, which you call the Great Ice Age. The few survivors entered the third world. This world lasted a long time, and as in previous worlds, the people spoke one language. The people invented many machines and conveniences of high technology, some of which have not yet been seen in this age. They even had spiritual powers that they used for good. They gradually turned away from natural laws and pursued only material things, and finally only gambled while they ridiculed spiritual principles. No one stopped them from this course, and the world was destroyed by the great flood that many nations still recall in their ancient history or their religions. The elders said, again, only small groups escaped and came to this fourth world where we now live. Our world is in terrible shape again, even though the Great Spirit gave us different languages and sent us to four corners of the world and told us to take care of the earth and all that is in it. Take care of the earth and all that is in it. The Hopi ceremonial rattle represents Mother Earth. The line running around it is a timeline and indicates that we are in the final days of the prophecy. What have you as individuals, as nations, and as the world body been doing to take care of this earth? In the earth today, humans poison their own food, water, and air with pollution. Many of us, including children, are left to starve. Many wars are still being fought. Greed and concern for material things is a common disease. The axis of Taurus and Scorpio really speaks to that greed and material density of Taurus, and then the letting go and the transformation and the spiritual essence of Scorpio opposing that. In the Western Hemisphere, our homeland, many original native peoples are landless, homeless, starving, and have no medical help. And this is happening across the globe, right? The Hopi knew humans would develop many powerful technologies that would be abused. In this century, we have seen the First World War and the Second World War, in which the predicted gourds of ash, which you call the atomic bomb, fell from the sky with great destruction. That's one of the signs of the Hopi prophecies of the future, one of the things that they would see. There are many things that would happen before the final destruction. You can read about it on the Wikipedia thing that I linked on there, but it's things like crisscrosses of metal snakes throughout the land, or iron snakes, which are probably the railroad system, different things. Concrete. I don't know if they use the word concrete. Maybe they use stone, spider web that crosses the whole world. To me, that I think of that as roads and stuff. But there's all of these different things. Okay, so the Hopi knew humans would develop many powerful technologies that would be abused. In this century, we have seen the First World War and the Second World War, in which the predictive gourds of ash, this is one of the things, these gourds of ash would fall from the sky, which you call the atomic bomb, fell from the sky with great destruction. Many thousands of people were destroyed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now remember, the bombs were dropped in 1945, and these elders met in 1948, a couple of years later, to record all of this, right? And then this is in the 90s when it's being, a speech is being given to the UN. For many years, there has been great fear and danger of World War III. The Hopis believe the Persian Gulf War was the beginning of World War III, but it was stopped, and the worst weapons of destruction were not used. This is now a time to weigh our choices for the future. We do have a choice. If you, the nations of this earth, create another great war, the Hopi believe we humans will burn ourselves to death with ashes. That's why the spiritual elders stress strongly that the United Nations fully open the door to native spiritual leaders as soon as possible. Nature itself does not speak with a voice that we can easily understand. Neither can the animals and birds we are threatening with extinction talk to us. Who in this world can speak for nature and the spiritual energy that creates and flows through all life? In every continent are human beings who are like you, but who have not separated themselves from the land and from nature. It is through their voice that nature can speak to us. I mean, even sitting here talking about astrology, Like, that's nature. These are the planets. This is our sky. This is the language of nature speaking to us, the archetypes speaking. You have heard these voices and many messages from the four corners of the world today. I have studied comparative religion, and I think in your own nations and cultures you have knowledge of the consequences of living out of balance with nature and spirit. The native people of the world have seen and spoken to you about the destruction of their lives, about the destruction of their homelands, and the ruination of nature, and the desecration of their sacred sites. It is time the United Nations use its rules to investigate these occurrences and stop them now, instead of helping to commit more of them. The Four Corners area of the Hopi is bordered by four sacred mountains. The spiritual center within is a sacred site. Our prophecies say we'll have a special purpose in the future for mankind to survive, and now should be left in its natural state. All nations must protect this spiritual center. The Hopi and all original native people hold the land in balance by prayer, fasting, and performing ceremonies. Our spiritual elders still hold the land in the Western Hemisphere in balance for all living beings, including humans. No one should be relocated from their sacred homelands in this Western Hemisphere or anywhere in the world. Acts of forced relocation, such as Public Law 93531 in the United States, must be repealed. Like, the echo is so deafening, huh? The United Nations stands on our native homeland. The United Nations talks about human rights, equality, and justice, and yet the native people have never had a real opportunity to speak to this assembly, such as establishment, until today. It should be the mission of our nations and this assembly to use your power and rules to examine and work to cure the damage people have done to this earth and to each other. Hopi elders know that was your mission, and they wait to see whether you will act on it now. Nature, the first people, and the spirit of our ancestors are giving you loud warnings. Today, December 10th, 1992, you see increasing floods, more damaging hurricanes, hailstorms, climate changes, many often man-made, orchestrated, and earthquakes, as our prophecies said would come. Even animals and birds are warning us with strange change in their behavior, such as beaching whales, or whales attacking yachts, birds falling from the sky, bees dying en masse, especially now with the 5G and the frequencies, the animals are being affected. Why do animals act like they know about the Earth's problems and most humans act like they know nothing? If we humans do not wake up to the warnings, the great purification will come to destroy this world just as the previous worlds were destroyed. What I love about these prophecies is it gives us a choice, right? A lot of like the biblical prophecies, a lot of the end times prophecies are like, we are in the end times. The Antichrist is coming. You better find Jesus. Shit's gonna get bad. This is how it's gonna go down. War and famine and all of this stuff. But these prophecies are like, yo, the shit's about to get bad, but you have a choice. You have the ability to rewrite this wrong if we can learn our lessons, right? So Thomas, who's the guy talking, and Oren Lyons held up a picture of a large rock drawing in Hopi land. This rock drawing shows part of the Hopi prophecy. There are two paths. The first with technology, but separate from natural and spiritual law, leads to these jagged lines representing chaos. The lower path is one that remains in harmony with natural law. Here we see a line that represents a choice, like a bridge joining the paths. If we return to spiritual harmony and live from our hearts, we can experience a paradise in this world. If we continue only on this upper path, we will come to destruction. It is up to all of us, as the children of Mother Earth, who is conjunct this moon. It is up to all of us to clean up this mess before it is too late. The elders request that during this international year for the world's indigenous people, the United Nations keep that door open for spiritual leaders from the four corners of the world to come and to speak to you for more than just a few minutes as soon as possible. The elders also request that 8 investigative teams visit the native areas of the world to observe and to tell the truth about what is being done and to stop these nations moving in this self-destructive direction. If any of you leaders want to learn more about the spiritual vision and power of the elders, I invite you to come out to Hopi Land and to sit down with our real spiritual leaders in their sacred kivas, where they will reveal the ancient secrets of survival and of balance. Remember, this is aligned with the higher scale, the northern scale, and associated with balance, right? I hope that all members of this assembly that know the spiritual way will not just talk about it, but in order to have real peace and harmony, will follow what it says across the United Nations wall. They will beat their swords into plowshares and study war no more. Let's together do that now. And then here's an epilogue about what happened after. Okay, so if you guys want to read that, here's a link to that whole thing. We read the whole thing because it's so important. And time isn't even a real thing, especially after that stupid PSYOP time change. Like, what even time is it? Oh, it's 11:11. Oh, it's 11:11 and it's about to be 11:11 tomorrow. So, this is a link to a 2-part interview, okay, with that Thomas guy who we just heard talk. I'm just going to read this. This is the link to the first part. You can find the second part over on YouTube. But this is him if you want to hear him talk. If you want to hear him, it's like a 2-hour-long presentation. So he's a messenger and translator for the Hopi since 1948. He died in 99. He traversed the globe trying to help people understand the warnings revealed in the Hopi prophecy. In November 1995, the Sacred Land Film Project followed him to the Whole Life Expo in Las Vegas, where he made a 2-hour-long presentation over 2 days. Here's part 1, and you can find part 2 by clicking part 1 and going over to YouTube. Okay, so let's go over to the slides here. Okay, so we don't have any more slides. We're going to go to the chart, and we're going to talk about the chart. Okay, so now that we've got a kind of idea of all of the things aligning with this moon, we've got, of course, the sun and moon conjunct in Scorpio, kickstarting a new scorpionic cycle, and whatever house Scorpio governs for you. For me, it's my 3rd house, information, communication, learning, processing of information, the depths of it. For you, it's going to be somewhere else. We have the sun and moon conjunct Hopi. We can see how this archetype is manifesting in our current state and how it holds so much wisdom for us. So much wisdom that can help us break free, that can help us actually push into our future. Now, we also have this moon conjunct Mars in Ceres and in opposite in opposition to Uranus. So we've talked a lot about Hopi already. We've even talked a lot about Ceres, this Earth mother, right? It's conjunct Mars. Mars is that planet of action, drive, desire. It's what we're pushing towards. And what we need to push towards is that Earth mother. Much like the moon itself, which is aligned with serpens, that serpent, much like Gaia's serpent, that severing of that connection that Ophiuchus is working to reintegrate so that he can become whole once more. He can activate that galactic center, he can activate the axis mundi, he can reach for that crown, and he can access that source of singularity beyond this lunar solar dichotomy. And in order to do that, he has to integrate the divine feminine, right? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out where I want to start. Talked about a lot of this already, but like my notes are kind of all over the place. All right, well, we're talking about the divine feminine, so I just want to touch on this quote I have written here. I posted in my stories earlier the Sophia Cycles page. If you guys follow my stories, I know you are familiar with Sophia Cycles because I post her stuff all the time. She reads so many fabulous books and she's constantly posting phenomenal quotes. And this one is from Marion Woodman on the divine feminine. It says, I think the spiritual feminine is practically non-existent in our culture. People simply do not like the feminine. They are terrified to let go. Into what? Into nothingness? So she has to come in the back door through eating disorders or other addictions or shadows, right? Which Scorpio governs, right? It can govern all of those like darker parts of our psyche, those obsessive, compulsive, addictive, vindictive aspects of our psyche. Or it can govern our letting go into nothingness or the mystery, right? The other side of the veil, the unknown, which is ultimately what we need to do. It's ultimately what this is all about, right? I'm going to let my dog in because he's out the door clinking on. Maybe not. He sounds a little hyper. I'll just leave him out there. Okay. So, speaking of hating the divine feminine, let's talk about how this moon is in a trine to Neptune. The sun and moon and Mars are all in a trine to Neptune in Pisces. The exact trine with Mars and the sun will be on the 17th, when the sun conjuncts Mars and they both come into an exact trine with Neptune retrograde on the 17th. So this is something we'll be feeling for quite some time. Now the sun and moon and Mars all here in Scorpio is that penetrating, detective, piercing through in order to see the depths of something. Now it is working harmoniously with Neptune retrograde in Pisces. When Neptune is retrograde, you guys have heard me say this, you'll hear me say this a million times. When Neptune, the planet of illusion, confusion, delusion, the fog, and the spiritual dimension, at home in Pisces, the depths of said Akashic spiritual dimension, with Neptune is retrograde, we are able to pierce through the veil of deception and see very clearly. And what we're seeing is the depths of the human, the collective unconscious. So the sun and moon are in a trine to Neptune retrograde, as well as the asteroid Pandora. So this is Pandora's box. This is something we have talked about before, more in depth. This is going to be a brief summary, but it's definitely a myth that I would encourage you to dive into. Some astrologers will refer to this as the asteroid Pandora. I call it Pandora's box. Some other astrologers do too. As you can see, it kind of looks like a box. Now, Pandora is one of those cursed woman archetypes. She's pretty much the Greek Eve. She was the first human, the first woman made by Hephaestus, by the orders of Zeus. And she is responsible, according to the patriarchal Greek myths, for ending our earthly paradise. She's blamed for the end of this paradisical realm, much like Eve is blamed. But Pandora should not be blamed. It is not her fucking fault at all. And really, she's kind of just a scapegoat for the shadows of the gods themselves. So as the story goes, again, right around the time of the Greek flood, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to the humans. And this fire represents knowledge, much like the apple that is bitten in the biblical myth represents knowledge, right? Knowledge of good and evil pulls you out of that paradisical ignorance is bliss realm and throws you into a quest towards truth and your quest back towards that realm, fully understanding good, evil, light, dark, yin, yang on your quest back towards singularity, right? So Pandora is blamed for ending our earthly paradise. As the story goes, Prometheus stole fire from the gods to the humans, gave us the ability to cook our food, to warm our home. It's associated with knowledge. It's associated with being like the gods. Fire is the only one of the 4 elements we as humans can make ourselves. It makes us godlike. And the gods, they didn't like that. And so Prometheus was punished, having to have his liver picked out. And humanity was punished. And humanity's punishment was Pandora. Pandora was given the box by Zeus and was told not to open this box. He knew she was going to open the box. He was purposefully setting her up for failure. She was a patsy, ultimately. She was a patsy. He wanted to unleash all of these things on the human collective, which already existed. That's what we're going to get to here. It already existed. But he wanted to be able to blame the woman, right? As all good patriarchal pantheons do. Woman bad, woman sinful. Everything that is bad in this world is the woman's fault, right? So Pandora's not supposed to open this box. But she does, because, bitch, you tell me I'm not going to open the box, I'm going to open the fucking box. Same thing, not going to eat the apple, I'm going to eat the apple. But the interesting thing about the apple is that Eve was never told not to eat the apple. At the time, in the timeline, in the biblical timeline, when God told Adam not to eat the apple, Eve had not been made from his rib yet. Only Adam was told not to eat the apple. So if anybody is to blame, it is the man for not delivering the message, not Eve for eating the apple. But anyway, Pandora given the box. Don't open the box, right? Of course she does. And all of life's horrors fly out of this box. Sorrow, disease, vice, violence, greed, madness, old age, and death, all to plague humankind for forever. This is the first woman who's blamed for this original sin. The problem is that all of the things that Pandora supposedly let out of this box, like rape and violence and greed and war and jealousy, all of these things already existed. The gods themselves were perfect depictions of many of these archetypal expressions, and all of this stuff was already taking place. So Pandora didn't really let anything out into the world that didn't already exist. What she did is she let everything out of this repressed box out into the world for us to see within our collective unconscious, Pisces, within our human psyche, so that we can address these parts of the human condition and work through them on our quest back to that paradisical state, right? So Neptune retrograde is piercing through that box of everything that has been released within our psyche. Now, as all these things were flying out of the box, she freaked out and she closed the box and she trapped one thing in there. And that thing was at the bottom. And that thing we couldn't get to until we worked through all this other stuff. And what was at the bottom, and what is really the only thing left here in this box, is hope. Hope was there at the bottom of the box. And it was trapped in there. And so when everybody's like, oh, you don't want to open Pandora's box, I always say, like, actually, you do. Because it has already been opened and everything has already been released. The only thing in there is hope, and it's trapped. So we want to open the box. And right now that box is in the depths of our collective unconscious. It's working harmoniously with this lunation. It's conjunct Neptune retrograde, that psychic spiritual planet that is piercing through the fog into deep, mystical, hidden spiritual truths. And it's forcing us to look at all of the dark, horrific parts of the human condition in a very clear way. Like that veil of deception is being pulled from our eyes, and we are seeing the darker parts of our collective unconscious rear their heads right now. But we're also, much like those Hopi prophecies, there's still this essence of hope that we can hold our hat on. It's not full-blown end times. We still have the opportunity to change, and that change starts with us. Hold on, Alf, I have like a mermaid tail blanket on, so I have to like take it off. Hold on. Hey, come in here with mommy. Go lay down. Okay, actually, come here. I want to show you to the internet. You look so ridiculous. Okay, so he has this like horrible thing on his foot that needs to heal. It's so bad, you guys. It looks really bad. It's really gross. And I have bought him 4 different cones and contraptions, and he can get to his foot with all of them. And then I had to buy this super long cone, and then we had to sew this donut thing, and so he has them both on. It looks kind of ridiculous. I'm just trying to make it so you can see him big. Okay, come here, Alfie. Come. Let's show them how silly you look. He has this giant thing that we sewed around his freaking neck. My daughter made it. And this super long cone, because every other one he can still get to his paw with just this alone. It's this front paw right here. It's very gross. I won't show it to you. But this thing is brilliant. He uses it as a neck pillow. He's going to have to wear this for literally 3 months. It's not fun. Okay. Back to the chart. So I was saying that the transformation... Stop. Alfie, sit. Good boy. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Why aren't you listening? Okay, here's your blanket. You lay on the blanket. Okay. What was I saying? Transformation. The transformation starts with us, right? So this is a Scorpio New Moon. This is the realm of transformation, alchemical transformation. And we're starting a new chapter when it comes to that, something that will culminate over the next 6 months. So if you're thinking about intentions, things you want to set around this moon, the focus on the transformation of the self and a connection to divinity in nature, and the like equilibrium, a balancing, harmonious energy of nature itself would be some avenues to perhaps take. Okay. Okay, so we've talked about how the sun and moon are conjunct. It's conjunct Mars. It's conjunct Serpens, the serpent, that healing serpentine energy. It's conjunct Hopi and Ceres. It's opposite Uranus. Okay, so the Mars conjunction and this Uranus opposition makes for very intense energy. This moon is volatile. It's sitting in a conjunction to Mars at home in Scorpio, with a strong connection to like power and aggression, intense power moves. It's in opposition to Uranus. This is erratic, unpredictable, shocking, out there, otherworldly energy. Now it is a retrograde, so it's not really expressing itself to its fullest, but sometimes Uranus, when it's retrograde, it's like, think about like a lightning strike that's like being held back, right? When it finally strikes, it's going to be even more intense. Think of something being restricted. Uranus is the boundary breaker. It's the awakener. It breaks the chains that bind us. And right now, it's being bound back. That rebel, that humanitarian archetype that is focused on our future, our progress, our freedom, our liberation is being held back. Now, this moon is not only conjunct Mars in opposition to Uranus. The Mars-Uranus opposition is an intense energy. It's very volatile. It's very intense. This moon is also in a quincunx to the North Node and Eris. Eris is also retrograde, but Eris is that planet of chaos. Eris responsible, again, woman blamed for the gods' issues, but responsible for starting the Trojan War. And she's the goddess of chaos and discord and upheaval and those like more unpredictable, erratic aspects of our realities. So the moon is conjunct Mars, it's in opposition to Uranus, and it's in a quincunx to Eris and the North Node. A quincunx is an irritating disconnect type energy. I always say Rick calls it the pebble in your shoe aspect. It's annoying, it's irritating, and there is a disconnect there. Now, we talked about how the moon is not only opposite Uranus, but it's also opposite the sun of Israel and the anniversary sun of the Nakaba, the ethnic cleansing, which is a really nice way of saying genocide of the Palestinian people. And this is definitely going to be obviously a highlight of the world events surrounding this lunation. Now this is in a grand cross to the asteroid Atlantis as well as Uranus. So like I said earlier, this really speaks to the passion of humanity, the humanitarianism that resides within our collective consciousness, the rebel versus the ego of the Atlantean warlords. And we really see humanity and this like passionate drive manifesting throughout the countries of the world when it comes to this. Like, people are not feeling this war. I mean, we saw similar stuff happen in Vietnam, you know, in the like late 1960s, and this like counterculture movement, more like the early 60s it really started, but this anti-war movement, lots of organizations, huge mass demonstrations. This was the same time as the civil rights movement, when everybody was getting together and creating change. And then of course we saw this psyop come of the hippie movement, right? The sex, drugs, rock and roll turn on, tune in, drop out, MK Ultra yourself, so that you're over here in a la la land fantasy of your own unconscious ultimately, and you're not making the changes that we can make when we get together, right? And this Eros, this life force, this primordial force, which informs the entire cosmos, this Eros energy, this life force energy is running through Aquarius right now. This is our collective consciousness. Now the Eros, Psyche, mythology are connected. Eros and Psyche are lovers. Psyche is responsible for, she's the first human to ever become a god in Greek mythology, and this happens through deep, transformative personal initiations. And so I was like, well, if Eros is in a square to this moon, where is Psyche? Well, Psyche right now is at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. It is in conjunction to the great attractor. And on the 21st, go here. No. Days. On the 21st, on the 21st, Mercury, the planet of messages, of information, of communication, of the mind, will be conjunct Psyche, the asteroid that is associated with our soul and the awakening and ascension of it. Psyche means soul in Latin. It will be conjunct Psyche, and it will be conjunct the great attractor, the center of our 100,000 galaxy supercluster. So this huge cosmic mind of 100,000 galaxies that are all connected and all being pulled towards the central point in space known as the great attractor. Mercury, the mind, the message will be aligned with this point, and Psyche just a couple of days after this lunation. So we are in the midst of a deeply psychic and unconscious initiation, and much information can be uncovered at this time very clearly, if we can pull back this veil of deception and then transform the parts of ourselves that we're being shown that need transformation. This is our collective self, this human collective, as well as like our personal relationship dynamics, or just our personal reality, the things that are manifesting, whatever house this is in, really. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the aspects kind of going on and leaning up to this moon. So today on the 10th, we have Mercury in a square to Saturn. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Mercury right now is at 0 degrees, inching closer to Psyche. It's at 0 degrees, and it is in a square to Saturn. Again, Mercury is being restricted in some way. It's being asked to, and Mercury in Sag doesn't necessarily, Mercury who just left Scorpio and moved into Sag doesn't necessarily like to be restricted. But just know the energy is very volatile right now. And so reel your tongue in. Really do yourself a favor. I'm talking to you. Reel your tongue in. Okay, so on tomorrow, on the 11th, Mars will make its exact opposition with Uranus retrograde later in the day, sometime later in the day. That energy will be exact on the 11th. We still will very much be feeling it on the 13th, which is the day of the lunation. On that day, Ceres, the asteroid Ceres, the Earth Mother, will come into an exact trine with Neptune retrograde, really working harmonious. That Earth Goddess archetype is really working harmoniously with the psychic, spiritual other world, the multi-dimensional space. On that day, the sun will be in an exact opposition with Uranus retrograde, the same day as the lunation. And then on the 17th, Mars and the sun will be in exact conjunction and an exact trine to Neptune. So while the moon is on the 13th, really through till the 21st, we are having profound activations. The sun, even just the sun the sun will be conjunct Mars, but even just the sun coming into a trine to Neptune retrograde, while in Scorpio, the depths of what others can't see, the depths of the unseen, that detective penetrating, piercing into the mysteries will be working harmonious with Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Like, so much clarity can really come through right now, but it involves the unseen. It involves Scorpio. It involves Pisces. It involves a spiritual, symbolic, archetypal lens in order to understand said information. And it involves you going into the realm of the unconscious, which is where we're headed as we're heading into this darker half of the year for those of us here in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, what have we not talked about yet? We've talked about all of this and this. I think we're almost done. Okay, so on the 17th, I didn't link this. You guys will have to find this yourself. On the 17th, I watched this Randall Carlson video. Let me find the name of it for you. Hold on. I'm going to find it for you guys. Where's the history? Randall Carlson. Pleiades. Okay, so I watched this video by Randall Carlson. He posted it 11 months ago. It's called Pleiades, the Angel of Death. It's like a 21-minute long video, which is short for him. He's long-winded like me. And in this video, he talks about the connection to the flood and Atlantis, which is something we've already discussed, and particularly its connection to the Pleiades. Which is said to culminate at its peak highest point in our night sky on November 17th, which is the same day that Mars and the sun conjunct each other here in Scorpio and exactly trine Neptune retrograde. And he talks about how the 17th, what in many cultures, while a lot of these ancient death days are celebrated from the end of October, early November, a lot of cultures tie this period of cataclysm, of flood, of destruction to November 17th. And it's even the start of many calendars, including the Aztec calendar and things like this. And it was this when the Pleiades reached the zenith, the top of the sky, which is November 17th. So I don't know what may occur in the world on November 17th, but they really love these ancient calendars. They really love fixed star alignments and activations. And this day is not only astrologically significant as the Mars and the sun are conjunct. This denotes action. In Scorpio, this can be action in regards to power or control or destruction or transformation or piercing into the mysteries and this alchemical evolution of the self, right? And it will be in a trine to Neptune retrograde. So whatever does transpire on the world stage, people are going to see through that deception. That veil of deception is being lifted. Anyway, watch this video, Pleiades, Angel of Death, by the Randall Carlson podcast. It was really interesting. I watched it like last night or the night before. Okay, anything else you want to touch on here? I think we talked about all of this. Let me look at these web pages because sometimes I have things that I wanted to talk about and then I forget. Okay, no, we talked about all of this. Okay, so I have some cards. All right, you guys, these cards, these decks never let me down. Like, you don't even need to know much about astrology to know, looking at these cards, that they are fucking on point when it comes to like a Scorpio moon. We'll get to these cards in a second, but this is, look at my intense third house Scorpio Pluto writing. I'm like pushed so hard. I write through all the papers. All right, so Scorpio. I am the underground river of psyche. I am the underground river of psyche that is tapped into all perception. I see what others do not see, and through my piercing gaze, I shift energy with catalytic force. In the illumination of my X-ray vision, emotional truths surface, dislodging outgrown shells in an eternal cycle of presence and renewal. And then the archetype card I pulled is Apocalypsis. So you guys know I love this deck, the Archetypes deck from the Wild Unknown. It's broken up into all of these different archetypes. So like the archetypal selves, like the mother, the father, the magician, right? The archetypal places like the forest, the mountain, whatnot. And then the archetypal tools like the stone or the mirror. And then the archetypal initiations. So this card is one of the archetypal initiations. The first one of the archetypal initiations is actually Eros, which is sitting in a square to this moon. Eros is that energy of desire, of life force, right? From there, we move to Agape, which is unconditional love and devotion. After that is Thanatos, which is an initiation of death, of endings. And moving out of Thanatos, which is very much associated with Scorpio itself, we move into this Apocalypsis. So apocalypse, while in biblical tradition is usually like hellfire and brimstone, the word apocalypse is a Greek word, and it means this unveiling of what was hidden, this revealing of what was hidden. So yes, it seems like the end of one world because the veil of deception has been lifted from your eyes, and that's what it says here. This card is associated with the removing of the veil of deception. Apocalypsis indicates a particularly painful time, one that unfolds when two desperate dynamics occur simultaneously, pulling the psyche in seemingly opposing directions. The first is a lifting of the veil. This means truths that have been kept in the dark are revealed, seen, and unearthed. No matter how relieving it is to witness them come into the light, an element of despair and grief follows. The second dynamic is the regeneration that comes from the wreckage of the revealed truth. The old narrative breaks and a new story forms. Apocalypsis energy is similar to a forest fire. Devastation for the sake of regeneration. The veil lifts and we see who and what has been hiding. From the nakedness of the truth, a child is born. Have faith in the process. Hold on to your center, that grounded balance that all those Hopi prophecies spoke of that we will need to get through this time. Have faith in the process. Hold on to your center. That is the only way. All kinds of things will be revealed during a time of apocalypses, from big global lies to little white ones that lace the bedroom sheets. Brace yourself for the horse of truth to storm your every field. This card has a strong relationship to Aletheia, which is the next initiation, which is the initiation of truth. If both cards appear in one reading, you've got some real uncovering to do. Take heed. We only pulled one card. When this archetype is evolved, it represents the unknown becomes known and guides the way. The unknown becomes known and guides the way. But in its lower archetype, it can represent as nihilism or hopelessness. But remember, this moon is in trine to Neptune, our psychic spiritual planet in Pisces, the depths of the spiritual cosmic womb, and it's conjunct Pandora's box, that box of hope. That's all that's left in there is hope, right? We got a lot of shit to work through as we get back to that box of hope, but only thing left in there is hope, and it's working harmoniously with this moon. Okay, so then I pulled a card from the Wild Harmonic Oracle to see how we can navigate this. And the card that came out is Water of Fire, of course. And it says Subconscious Reflection, of course. And I love how we have these like eyes here, like we are really seeing things for what they are. All right, let me find this in the book. I use this deck so much for my clients. I should kind of know where things are, but usually I mark it. But there, I saw you. Okay. As the flowing feeling of life ascends into the fire of will, that Mars conjunction, right? Light is cast into the ripples, and strangely enriching mirrors are found. Signs, omens, mirrors, and messages from the deeper self that enrich, protect, and guide my life. This is the art of recognizing that everyone, everything in my current awareness is a reflection of me. This is not to be taken objectively or judgmentally as facts, although they might be at times. Rather, I see them as indications and points of inquiry for my dreaming awareness to play with and see what arises. My body is my personal interface with my subconscious. My body, Taurus, is my personal interface with my subconscious, my unconscious, Scorpio. But my subconscious goes far beyond my body, into the realm of the unseen, into the realm of the primordial. This room I sit in, my near subconscious, I can sense it only in a surface way, normally. I must reach deep within to find where I can feel it, know it. This land I roam, even deeper into my subconscious, farther out of my cognition, yet deeply affecting me. This world and universe, farther and farther into my depth, hidden almost entirely from view, yet powerfully influencing me in every moment. Inquiry. What is life saying to me, about me, right now, through this experience that is before me? Okay, guys, I think I have a couple other slides here. Okay, so when I was scrolling through all my old posts to try to find a Bob Dylan post that I posted a long time ago, because I wanted to post it with some lyrics to piggyback off of something else I posted in my stories, but I couldn't find that post. But I found a bunch of other old posts that I wrote that are kind of relevant to current times, so we're going to dive into those real quick. This is something I wrote for last Thanksgiving. It's kind of a buzzkill, but we're just going to go ahead and read it. I wrote, sorry for the buzzkill. I wrote this while thinking about the land I stand on, this entity we call America. You know, the one built on a foundation of lies and the blood of its natives by occultists with the very specific goal of creating a futuristic, high science-based society called New Atlantis, cut off from the land, cut off from our humanity, from our mother, in order to spread Western ideology and scientific materialism. Happy Thanksgiving. And I wrote this poem last year. It says, false history, New Atlantis, the illusion of free, an American flood and a manifested destiny. A land anointed in blood, masonry, technology, and a first people's generosity. And a land unloved, awaiting the awakening of both you and me. Kind of perfect for everything that we were talking about here tonight. The karmic history of this country, the karmic history of other countries, and just kind of like the underlining archetypal energy of where humanity's kind of at right now, right around the corner from Thanksgiving. And then this is something I wrote around that same time called The Ghosts of Atlantis. Voice of death, voice of destruction, history speaks, knowing its forgotten truth we seek. Can you hear the screams of the past? What about the whispers of the future? The timelines split, they merge, they fractalize. So many ideals, so many perceptions, lies, so many lenses, so many eyes. Yeah. We are playing out a karmic loop that is played out time and time and time again. And if we can just integrate what we have severed, we might be able to save ourselves this time around. But we're definitely working through the echoes of a forgotten history that most people aren't even aware exists, but it's stuff we cannot hide from. We either integrate this part of ourselves or we repeat the cycle. Okay, did we say all the things? I think I said all the things. All right, guys, have a great night. I will see you. I don't know when I'm going to see you. I have no idea. Let me look at this thing here. Okay, so today's the 10th of Moon. Okay, so those of you who are members of my course, the next lesson will be posted sometime this weekend. I don't know when. We're going to have a video sometime this weekend and then another one on Wednesday. Hopefully that will get us through this third lesson and on to the next one because it's really getting long. It's really getting long. So we should be... They'll be uploaded on sometime this weekend and then again on Wednesday. I am working on changing platforms. For those of you who are course members, I assume you're here. Most of you guys might be here. I'm working on changing platforms. That platform that I'm using, it literally cost me $200 a month just to keep it running. I signed up with that one so that I could use the live video format, but as we all know, their live video format is horrible. It's blurry. I can't even share my screen right. It's trash. So I've just been using Zoom anyway and then uploading it. So no need for me to stay there anymore. So I'm moving to a much cheaper platform. So once I move everything over to there, which is going to be sooner rather than later. I was planning on waiting until the course is over, but it's just literally too expensive for me to keep this going. So I will send everybody an email with all of their login information. It will be, all of your emails will be like put in already, so you'll already have access to it. And we'll be moving over to another platform here soon, hopefully within the next couple of days. I also, for Small Business Saturday after Thanksgiving, I will be launching early bird signups for a webinar that I will be doing either like late December or early January, like the first week of January. Either the last week of December or the first week of January. Probably the first week of January because the holidays will be crazy for everybody. So the first week of January, I'm going to be doing a 2024 webinar. So a peek ahead at the 2024 astrology. And early bird pricing will be available for Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday. So from like Saturday through to Monday, I'll be launching that. It'll be available on that new platform. I don't know how much it's going to be yet, but I'm going to try to make it pretty affordable. And we're going to be diving into the astrology of 2024. There'll of course be a PDF with dates and whatnot, degrees, things so you can reference it back. So if you guys are interested in that, keep an eye out. And we will be meeting here on Patreon on the 25th. Which is that Small Business Saturday. We'll be meeting here to do the live stream for the Gemini full moon, which will be on the 27th. So we'll be meeting here on the 25th. And yeah, have a great new moon. I will see you guys later. And yeah, have a good one. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. Bye, guys.